the order which we follow today. And one of these traditions was the singing of evening hymns. They used to, as they were serving Sri Ramakrishna day and night during his last illness, they continued that service after he left the body, as if he were still a living presence. And remarkably, some of them had a direct experience of Ramakrishna after he had left the body, Holy Mother in particular. His wife, as you know, Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual partner, you can say. They didn't have a marriage consummated on the physical plane. They lived as monk and nun. But after he left the body, she was weeping so much. And then she saw him, as if in flesh and blood. And he said, "Why are you weeping so much? I have just gone to another room." So this was the experience of Mother. So they continued this worship, and every evening they conducted a traditional Hindu worship of God, which involves waving the lights and waving the other elements of waving, of course, light and making offerings of water and space, symbolized by a cloth, and earth, symbolized by a flower, and air, symbolized by a fan, a yak-tail fan. We call the arati, the evening worship. So they performed this worship, and which is traditional in India, every Hindu temple will perform this kind of worship in the evening, after sundown. The idea is that we offer all the elements of this creation back to the divine at the end of the day. So these elements symbolize the way we experience the world. We experience the world through five senses. Our eyes, our eyes, our tongue. I'm going in order here of the items offered. Our eyes, our tongue, our skin, our
ears.
No, but earth first. Our nose, and then our ear. And each one of these is connected with is considered as one of the elements comprising this manifested world. So the elements are considered as fire, which we see with our eyes, and water, which we taste with our tongue, and liquid things, which we taste with our tongue. And then, so we offer fire, then we offer water, we offer space. How do we sense space? Well, that's through our ears. This symbolizes space, the hearing. We sense space with our ears, hearing the space. And then we offer a flower symbolizing earth, which we sense with our sense of smell. We sense the earth. And finally, we offer the air, which we sense with our skin. We feel the wind on our skin. So these five elements we offer during the arati. And the brothers used to sing a song to Shiva, which is sung at the Kashi Vishwanath temple, famous temple in Benares. The Lord Shiva, Lord of the universe, they used to sing that song, as I understand it. And it might be that song, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Shiva Omkara, something like that. And but then, when the Brotherhood moved to rented premises on the Ganges, right near the current monastery, called Nilambar Babu's Garden House. There was one, Nilambar Mukherjee or something, and he had a house there that he put up for rent, and the brothers rented that house as their monastery. So that time, it was 1898, the Brotherhood was starting to grow. It was now 12 years since the founding of the order, as it were, and Swami Vivekananda had already been to the West once and had come back from the West. While he was in the West, he was also guiding the Brotherhood through letters constantly. But he was doing two things. On the one hand, he was working for India, and on the other hand, he was bringing the teachings of Vedanta to the West. And then in 1898, there at this garden house, he composed all the three hymns that we are under consideration today. Two of them are in Sanskrit. The one that we took up earlier is a Sanskrit hymn. And he composed two hymns for the evening prayer. The first hymn is called, it starts Khandana Bhava Bandhana. It's actually in the Bengali language, though we can say it's Sanskritized Bengali, mostly Sanskrit words, which means that anyone who knows a little Sanskrit can understand the song, more or less. So even those who speak other Indian languages, probably they won't have much difficulty. For those who speak English only, they have to do some studying to catch up and understand the meaning. But it's worthwhile studying. So this song is sung while the items are being offered, and it's sung with a deeply gambhir is the word, which gambhir means almost like grave and solemn kind of mood, in a traditional classical style of music called what's it called? Drupad style.
Maharaj,
you all could give the talk.
No, I'm cheating Maharaj. There is this CD which starts with saying, this song sung in this mandir in Belur is based on the Drupad. So it's all
style.
cheating Maharaj.
So, and it's played with a two-headed drum called a pakawaj, which is kind of like a mridanga, but it has a specialty that the one head is made, you to get the sound out of it, you have to put, of all things, dough. You make whole wheat dough, whole wheat flour and water, and you mix it and you knead it, just like you would use for a chapati, for making one of those breads, or roti. And you take a ball of that and you mush it onto the end of the drum, and that forms the left hand of the drum, and that gives that deep dum dum sound that you get only with a pakawaj. And then the right hand, of course, is more like a tabla head with the black center. So that's played with a pakawaj, which gives that deep sound. And nowadays it's played with a harmonium. But a harmonium was only introduced in the evening prayer, I believe in the teens, or maybe the early 20s. Before that they didn't have a harmonium in India. And so I guess they would sing it maybe with a tanpura, or other instruments perhaps. But, so Swami Vivekananda composed this hymn to be sung during the waving. And the way they sing it now at Belur Mutt, it takes about 18 minutes, because they sing it very slowly the first time around, and they sing the first 8 verses completely through in that very slow speed, and then they sing the whole 8 verses, they start again at double the speed, which is traditional Drupad style, that the song is first sung slowly and then it's sung faster. And Drupad, the classical musicians, they get into playing with those rhythms and triple speed and all those things, but anyhow, this only goes to double speed, and then there's another 2 verses which are sung after that. In those the rhythm changes, the tal changes. And in fact, I heard that when he first composed the song, that after each of the first 8 verses, he had suggested, then you sing Namo Namo Prabhu Vakya Manatita. So after Kandana Bhava Bandhana, Nirguna Gunamai, Namo Namo Prabhu Vakya Manatita. That was the way he first composed it. But the brother said, no, Swamiji, it takes too long to sing. It's taking too long. It's too much. So then he rearranged it for these 8 verses, and then the Namo Namo comes at the end. Now, this song is so this is always the first song sung, and when it's completed, the waving of the offerings is completed before this.
So they time it exactly like that now?
The time, well, they're trained. It always takes about 18 minutes, and the pujari also, he's listening, so he knows when to go and when to. Now, most of the other centers, they don't sing the whole thing through twice. Only the 8th verse they sing a second time, speed it up, and then they sing the next day. So, and in Southern California, say at our Trabuco and Santa Barbara centers, they sing the first 4 verses slow, the second 4 verses fast. That's just to shorten the time.
Yeah,
but if you, it's the kind of song that really one should study, and if one is a sincere follower of Sri Ramakrishna, it's a song to memorize and to learn the meaning. Each word, one should know each word, meaning of each word, because it's a kind of meditation on Sri Ramakrishna, composed with profound devotion. If we read it, we can feel the devotion coming through every line of it. the deep love Swami Vivekananda had for his master. And in singing it, we too, as we sing it and we meditate on its meaning, we too begin to develop devotion for Sri Ramakrishna, which is a great blessing. It's a wonderful to taste the sweetness of love for the divine through a world teacher like Ramakrishna. Now, after this song, which is really describing the blessed qualities of Sri Ramakrishna, it's not a prayer. Though if you study it closely, you'll find that there is one prayer expressed. In the whole song, there is one prayer expressed, which is, grant us that we may have love for you. That's the one prayer expressed, and it comes in the sixth verse, where he says, Tyagishwara he naravara, O best of men, deha pade anurag. Give us love for your feet. Give us that intense love for you. That's the only time that there's any prayer, although we call it evening prayer, but there's only that one line where actually we express what we traditionally think of as a prayer. Give me this, give me... What do we ask for? Only love. So that's... and immediately following that is sung Om Hring Ritam, Sanskrit verse, also quite a solemn verses, and this is sung without any rhythm, without any rhythmic accompaniment. It's a kind of free verse. It's chanted, we can say. And this song, it has 4 verses, and each verse ends with the same line. Therefore, thou art my only refuge, O friend of the lowly. Looking on Sri Ramakrishna as the friend of all beings, including and especially those who are lowly, those who are lost. And I take refuge in you. So, I noticed, and we discussed this earlier, that here at this center, the order of the songs sung in the evening is Khandana Bhava Bandhana, and then Prakritim Paramam, which is a song composed by Swami Abhedananda to the Holy Mother. And then Murtameshwaram, which is a song composed by a disciple of Swami Vivekananda to Swami Vivekananda. The idea being that one song for Sri Ramakrishna, one song for Holy Mother, one song for Swamiji, and then after that Om Hring Ritam was added, so it's sung after that, and after that Sarva Mangala Mangalya was added, which is also sung. But I am proposing that this is the wrong order, actually. It's not bad exactly, but Om Hring Ritam naturally follows from Khandana Bhava Bandhana. So I request you to consider changing the order of your songs here, because this is the tradition of the Ramakrishna order. Swami Vivekananda composed these 2 songs to be sung one after the other. In the first song, it's like a meditation on Sri Ramakrishna, his glory, his power, his love, his saving power. And then in the very next hymn, we reflect on how we are unable to worship him adequately. We are unable to keep him always in mind. So what else can we do but take refuge at his feet? Take shelter in him. We have a refuge in this world, that is the divine. And Sri Ramakrishna, as a manifestation of the divine, is a refuge. So these 2 songs actually go hand in hand. They follow one after the other. So we'll try that tonight, and I think you will appreciate. Now the third song, since we're on this topic of order, in India, these 2 songs were sung in the evening prayer. When Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi, left her body in 1920, was it 20 or 21? 21. I should know this kind of thing, but I forget. Anyhow, she left the body. The next day, they added these 3 verses to the evening prayer. Sung after Om Hring Ritam, they added these 3 verses. These 3 verses are from Tantric scripture, scripture of the worshippers of Divine Mother, called the Chandi. Most of you are familiar with it. It's chanted daily, the whole thing. It's a long thing, about 700 verses. Durga Shaptasati, they call it, the 700 verses. Actually, it's not quite 700. They count Devi Uvacha, like that is one of the verses. So it's not quite 700 verses, actually, but about 700 we can say, a lot of verses. And there are 4 hymns to the Divine Mother in that text. And the last of those hymns, an extraordinarily beautiful, powerful hymn, there are 3 verses from it which are taken. Those are Sarva Mangala Mangali. Those 3 verses come from this hymn, which is said to be sung by the Devas to the Divine Mother, the all-powerful Divine Mother. And because naturally the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna are looking on Sri Ramakrishna as an embodiment of the Divine, then his spiritual consort must also be an embodiment of the Divine. And in that case, Sri Ramakrishna would embody the Divine Masculine, and Holy Mother would embody the Divine Feminine. So these 3 verses were sung, that was be added to the evening prayer after Holy Mother's leaving the body. Therefore, it makes perfect sense after Om Rinritam to sing these 3 hymns, which are ancient. They go back to time immemorial. This hymn, Prakritim Paramam, is a beautiful hymn in Sanskrit also, composed by Swami Abhedananda, one of Sri Ramakrishna's disciples, and was also very close to Holy Mother. Composed to her, and it's also a very powerful and beautiful hymn. And whenever I sing it, I feel sorry that it comes to an end. I always feel like there should be more verses to it. It's such an attractive melody and such attractive ideas that it's already over. There are 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 verses. But it feels like it's over so soon. Couldn't we sing it? Shouldn't there be some more verses? That's not sung in most of the centers of our order, but in a few centers it's sung after the evening prayer, as part of the evening prayer, notably Jairambati, where she was born, and in Benares, Varanasi, it's also sung there. They sing it there in quite a different melody. It's interesting. And you have added, it's quite nice, a song for Swami Vivekananda, which is not ordinarily sung in our order, but this Murta Maheshwaram, which is envisioning Swami Vivekananda as someone like Lord Shiva himself. Murta Maheshwaram. Maheshwaram means Shiva. Murta, the form of the form of Shiva. So that's a nice addition. Each center has its own unique additions to. But I will suggest that you sing them in this order: Khandana Bhava Bandhana, followed by Om Rinritam, followed by Sarva Mangala Mangale. Then this center falls in line with the tradition started by the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. It's not that I'm saying you should do it. We do it. Swami Vivekananda started it that way, and then when Mother passed, it was from the 1920s, it was done this way. So please do consider it.
Then we add our personal touch.
And you add your personal touch, which is singing more.
Which you will bless also, Mother.
I don't have the power to bless.
But you can.
But I think it's a nice touch. When we memorize a prayer like this, or memorize a song, Mahapurush, Raja Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda, he used to scold the monks when they would sing looking at the book. Because naturally there are so many songs, and the people will open the book and sing the song, reading the book, reading the words. And he would scold them, and he could tell if a singer was singing without even seeing the person. He could tell if they were singing from reading the book or if they were singing from memory. And why is this? Because when we know a song by heart, when we know it, it enters deeply into our heart. And we can put our whole heart into singing it. We don't have to think, oh, what's the next word? Oh, what does it mean? Like that, we already know it, we've internalized it, and it becomes, the songs express deep spiritual truths, generally in the language of devotion. Generally they're devotional hymns. They express certain attitudes which we would like to cultivate in our lives. The writers who have composed them are writing from expressing their own experience of deep spiritual moods and approaching the divine through love, through devotion. And they put these into words. And when we internalize them, we are able to reflect those moods in our own approach to the divine. So it's a great help in spiritual life to memorize some songs, not to rely on the book. Now, naturally, when we learn a new song, at first we'll have to read it from the book while we're singing it. And maybe we come to a group singing, and this morning I sang, or the earlier session I also sang a song. I haven't memorized that song. I like the song very much, the hymn very much, but I haven't taken the time to memorize it. So it's not forbidden to sing a song reading from the book, but it's a wonderful practice. It's a good, also good brain exercise to do some, commit some prayers to memory, commit some songs to memory, commit some verses to memory. Then they become our own, and we can deeply reflect on the meaning. Even in English, we can take some prayers in English, some verses in English, which is, or whichever language is our mother tongue, which is most familiar and comfortable to us. And when our mind gets restless in meditation, we're trying to meditate, we find that the mind is not settling down in meditation, we can pull out one of these verses, one of these prayers, and simply recite it slowly, internally, in our mind. And that has a way of focusing the mind. Our mind starts to take on the bhava, that attitude of the prayer or the song. So these songs are meant to be memorized and sung from memory. So let's, in the remaining time, we can go through some of these verses. I'm sure that if we take up each and every verse, we won't get through it, because each verse is full of wonderful associations. And but first and foremost, this is a hymn of devotion. And how does it start? Khandana bhava bandhana, which is, we can translate it, breaker of the bondages of this world, or breaker of this world's chain, as it's translated. In Hollywood, Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood wrote a beautiful prayer inspired by this hymn. It's called Breaker of This World's Chain. And it follows to a certain extent the lines here, but it takes some liberties also. But that doesn't matter. It's a beautiful and powerful prayer in its own right.
Is that the song you chant in Hollywood?
That's what we recite that in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which is, it's sort of said to be a translation. It's not a literal translation. Here and there it's literal, otherwise, but it's beautiful. And I'll refer to it from time to time while discussing, because they have really caught some beautiful notes there. Khandana bhava bandhana. So how is that? We may ask, what do you mean? The bondage of the world? What does that mean, bondage of the world? What do you mean, bondage? Are we bound?
Family ties.
Huh?
Attachment. Attachment. Family ties.
Family ties? Is that the bondage of the world?
Yes. Bandhan.
Materialism.
Attachment.
Misery.
I know that.
But see, the things that I attach to, they give me joy. Why is that a bondage? How is that a bondage?
The more you get, the more you want.
The more you get, the more you want.
Never-ending process, yeah.
Never-ending process.
And they are not permanent. They are
Not permanent. Well, then what's the bondage? If they're not permanent, how can they bind me?
It's still
Oh.
mine.
But that's
I think six repose, I think.
You're,
No, Maya.
you're a slave.
See, Ramakrishna, used to tell the story of the fish in the pond, and the fishermen go to cast their net in the pond, and some of the fish are so clever that they're never caught by the net. They know the fishermen they're never caught by the net. But most of the fish get sort of caught up in the net, and some of them, with a spring, they jump out, and with a splash, they get free. And so then the fishermen say, "Oh, there goes a big one, he got away." Some of them get free. And but many who are struggling to get out of the net, but they don't get free. They're struggling, but they're caught. But there are some fish, they just burrow down in the mud, and they have one strand of the net caught in their mouth, and they just go, and they get in the mud, and they think, we're quite safe here. Quite safe here, not realizing that very soon the fishermen are going to draw in the net and bring all the fish out of the water and sell them to people for their supper. So similarly, he says, like that. These are like the 4 different types of people in this world. There are some people in this world who are ever free. They're untouched by the world. They're not caught. Now, what does it mean to be caught in the world? I sometimes like to think of this. Because on the one hand, there's nothing wrong in the world. How does it catch us? And yet we do find that there's something profoundly dissatisfying with the world. It always seems like there's always a fly in the ointment. You know the phrase "fly in the ointment"? I guess it's an American term. It's Americanism. You have some ointment. You've prepared some ointment, to put on the body or something, and the fly gets in it.
Yeah.
It's a very nice. It's a very good you've worked very hard to make it, and it's perfect, and it smells beautiful, and the fly gets in it. It's a fly in the ointment. There's always something to make things not quite perfect. Everything is all right, but my wife is wonderful and she's so good, but her mother-in-law.
My mother-in-law.
Maybe her mother-in-law, but for her, it's your mother-in-law.
Her mother-in-law.
For you, it's your mother-in-law. For her, it's for her, it's your mother, and for you, it's her mother.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. See, there's always something, and we get caught, and we get upset, and we find that we're unable to stop thinking certain thoughts, and we start feeling like we have no peace. And we try to get some peace, and we hear that by meditating we'll get peace, and we go to sit to meditate, and the mind runs back to all those things that we're doing in the world. And it's like, wait, am I in charge or is my mind in charge? I thought that I'm in charge. I'm me. I should be the master. But my mind is running after all these things. It's gotten caught in all these things. I can't seem to get free. And sometimes we find in our life there's a certain situation where we have a job and we can't get along with our boss, but we can't quit the job because we don't have any other job. We get caught. So we gradually start to feel like there's elements of our life that it's like a chain that we can't quite cut it. Swami Vivekananda says there's 2 kinds of chains: the golden chain and the chain of iron and the chain of gold. And the chain of iron are those ways we get caught by the tough things, and the chain of gold is the sweet things. We love our families. We love some beautiful music, and but it ends up being like a chain of gold, and yet chain of gold is not less strong to bind. So, a time comes, we have these with these four aims of life. The Hindu tradition, Sanatana Dharma, is very clear that there are 4 goals of life. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Dharma is, we discussed yesterday a little bit, that is which leads us to unfolding our divine nature. How to live in this world according to the spiritual laws which are existing since time immemorial and which have been discovered by the saints and sages, the rishis, the seers. How do we lead our life? How do we interact with people? How do we earn a living? All those things. That's one of the aims of life, to know how to live. Then there's artha, wealth. It's a legitimate, seen in our tradition of India, It's legitimate to seek for wealth as long as we seek it according to following these spiritual laws. Because we have desires, and we want to fulfill our desires, we need wealth to fulfill those desires. And to fulfill our desires is perfectly okay. Vedanta says, yes, we have desires, but fulfill them, and get some peace thereby. And to fulfill them, for fulfilling some of them, you need wealth. So to earn some money, only do all of it according to Dharma, following a truthful life, not telling lies. Yes, it's easy to get wealth by telling lies. If telling lies, those will be the chains of iron. They will be terrible, very hard. But the chains of gold, also. So we find that, yes, all these are legitimate. But a time comes when it's no longer enough. Satisfying our desires, we get a little peace, and then another unease comes. We want something more. We want there's always something more, something around the corner. When I finally get settled, when I finally get tenure, it's a university town. When I finally get tenure, then, before you got tenure, didn't you feel? When I get tenure, then what happened? Did you feel that peace? For a short while you felt it. Yes, I got it. I got tenure. And then
new pains.
New problems, new pains. Yes.
More severe.
So, then we have this idea of cutting free, getting free. Enough of it. We have this idea in the Indian traditions, all the Indian traditions, that we come back again to this life. We have unfinished business. We have all these tendencies developed for chasing after pleasure and avoiding pain. And these get deep-rooted in us for seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. These are the chains. And they drag us from birth to death and death to birth. And we come again and again. And the time comes when we say, I've had enough. Let me get free. Let me no longer just chase after the ephemeral things of this world and try to make this world perfect. Because the scriptures say, the saints and sages say that there is perfection within me already. Only I don't know it. I don't see it. Let me realize that. So that is what, how do we break the chain? Well, Swami Vivekananda looks on Sri Ramakrishna as a breaker of the chains of this world, of the bonds of this world. How does he do that? We were discussing that earlier today. He is the world teacher. And by the way, nowhere in this hymn is Sri Ramakrishna mentioned. This hymn is equally applicable to any world teacher. And you may be interested to know that there is a church, a Christian church in Calcutta, where they sing this hymn to Jesus. Yes. Isn't that wonderful? It's a hymn composed to Sri Ramakrishna, but the Christians recognize that it equally applies to Jesus. They sing it to Jesus. There's no harm. It's in our monastery, most of our monasteries, we celebrate Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
That actually makes some Christians a little uncomfortable. You're Hindus, how can you celebrate Christmas? You worship Jesus? Of course, we worship him in the Hindu way, not in the Christian way. And some Christians feel a little uncomfortable about that, I think. Though there are other Christians who have come to witness the worship of Jesus at Bitter Mud and felt, I never saw such a beautiful devotional service to Jesus. How wonderful. Anyhow, but that's a digression. But we can say wonderful that the Christians can sing this hymn to Jesus. The Buddhists could sing this hymn to Buddha. Why not? The followers of Krishna could sing this hymn to Krishna. Absolutely. I see at this rate we're not going to get very far. It doesn't matter.
In the big scheme of things.
It doesn't matter if we don't go through every word of this hymn, because this idea, it starts with this idea. Sri Ramakrishna, as we had this beautiful discussion earlier of conceiving of an infinite meadow without end. And in that meadow, we can't see it because there's a wall built right across it. That's our ignorance. We can't see the infinite. But in that wall there's a hole. And when Sri Ramakrishna says, and what is that hole? M says, you are that hole. Sri Ramakrishna himself is that hole. Through you can be seen that infinite meadow without end. And Sri Ramakrishna says, I see you have understood that. Very good. Notice how he doesn't use the term I. I mean, he doesn't say, no, yes, I am that. He said, I see you have understood it. I see. Good. Nice, you have understood that. That Ramakrishna is that hole in the wall. Jaga Vandana Vanditoma. You are adored by the whole world. We adore you. This is an expression of adoration. We adore you. Vanditoma. How is he adored of all the world? The teacher, as an embodiment of the divine, anywhere people are worshipping the divine, they're worshipping, is the divine two? Are there two different gods? Hinduism has so many gods. It seems like there are different gods, but we know that the one infinite principle which is manifesting is providing different avenues for devotees to reach the divine. And so any adoration expressed for the divine anywhere is being expressed for that same one divine. Sri Krishna says also in Gita that they are worshipping me only. So, and almost in a deeper sense also, whatever we love, all love is actually only for God. When we love someone, what is it that we love? We're actually loving God. The famous verses of the Upanishad. It's not for the sake of the wife that the wife is loved, but for the sake of the divine within the wife. It's not for the sake of the husband that the husband is loved, but for the sake of the divine. It's not for the sake of our children that we love our children, but the divine is dwelling within them. So wherever there is adoration, wherever there is love, that actually, though we don't know it, is an expression of love for the divine. So when we say adored by all the world, the divine is adored by all. All love is an expression of the divine. So this first line itself is so deep and rich with meaning and association. Niranjana Nararupadhara. You are absolutely stainless, without any anjan, without any stain. And yet, you have taken this human form, which is so messy. If we look at this body, look what's inside of it. If you analyze what's inside of it, well, say we took all the ingredients inside this body and put them in jars on a table. Blood, bones, sinews, fat, intestines, and in the intestines there's digested food and all kinds of urine, all these things in jars. We wouldn't want to come within 10 feet of the table with all these things on it. And yet, that's really what this body is made of, all these things. And yet, stainless, yet taking this human form. Nararupadhara. Niraguna, we have this idea, let's not get into a big discussion on the gunas, but there are these elements of this world called the gunas. You are above them, and yet you are also full of blessed qualities. This is a kind of poetry here. Niraguna, gunamoy. On the one hand, you are beyond the gunas, and yet you are contained within yourself of so many blessed qualities. Mochana aghadushana, jagabhushana. Hear the poetry. Mochana aghadushana, jagabhushana, chidghanakaya. Mochana, you are liberating us from this mass of agha, which can be translated as sin or error or all the defects. You know? There's the mass, and we heard about that in this earlier session with Kalipada Ghosh, the drunkard, who by a touch of Sri Ramakrishna his whole life was transformed, and that all that, you know, Sri Ramakrishna, he died of throat cancer. Why did someone like that, who was utterly pure, never committed a wrong deed in his life, why should he of all people get this cancer? And it's said that he had the power, and only the divine has this power, to take on the sins. The sins means we don't have the same conception of sin. We shouldn't use the term sin. We can use the term the wicked. Every action has its reaction. Every action has its effect, and we call that karma. So if someone who has done many so-called wicked things, we call them mistakes, errors. Some people would call them sins. That's a certain amount of negative karma which will bear its results in suffering in our life, in this life, or in a future life. He has the power to lift that from us. But it has to manifest somehow, somewhere. So it manifested in this disease. That is what Sri Ramakrishna himself said. Mochana agadushana Mochana agadushana jagabhushana. Hear the poetry. And what is jagabhushana? Literally translated would be gem of the world. But listen how Swami Prabhupada translates it. Thou whom the cosmos wears a diamond at its heart. Now you start to understand the depth of this Jagabhushana. Thou whom the cosmos wears. What do we wear? When we have a gem, a bhushana, we wear it. And if it's a Jagabhushana, it's worn by thou whom the cosmos wears a diamond at its heart. A diamond at the heart of the cosmos. What poetry? No, that's why Swami Vivekananda didn't want to talk about Sri Ramakrishna, and then he composed this kind of poetry to express the inexpressible. How do you talk about that which is beyond mind and speech? Through poetry is the best way to reach it, and that way it reaches our hearts. Jagabhushana. Chid ghana gai. Your body is, as it were, consciousness consolidated, consciousness concentrated. Your body is pure consciousness. Chid ghana gai. Jnananjana vimala nayana vikshane mohajai. In this common idea in our tradition of anjana is that eye ointment you put on your eyes, the black that you put, and it's supposed to be also very medicinally good for the eyes, and especially women put it around their eyes to accentuate their eyes. In the West they use mascara, but in India it's made of carbon mixed with a little ghee, anjana. And it's said that the Guru applies this anjana, not made of carbon and ghee, but made of knowledge itself, and applies it to our eyes, so that our eyes are opened and we see the Spirit. Jnananjana, it's the anjana of jnana. Jnananjana, vimala nayana. Your sight is your vision is utterly pure, vimala, utterly pure. Your stainless eyes, as it were, sanctified by this jnananjana. And then this vikshana mohajai, vikshane mohajai, we can understand this actually in two ways. This is on the one, by your glance, that glance of your eyes, which is utterly purified by this anjana of jnana. Our delusion, our moha, our confusion about who we are and what is God disappears by your mere sight. Or we can understand it by your mere glance, or we can understand if we get a glance of you, if we can see you, if we can look into your eyes, then our delusion vanishes. So Swami Prabhupada translated it as, let's see if I can remember. Let us look deep in thine eyes. They are bright with the wisdom of God that can wake us from Maya's spell. Isn't that a beautiful translation? Yeah. Vikshane mohajai, let us look deep in thine eyes. They are bright with the wisdom of God that can wake us from Maya's spell. So it's a creative translation, yes, but it adds to our understanding of this hymn. It adds to it.
And in both ways, Maharaj.
Yes, in both ways. On the one hand, let him see us, and he does see us. If he by his has the power by his glance to remove our ignorance. At the same time, if we could see him, our life is completely blessed. Bhasvara bhava sagar, chira ummada prema patha. You are an ocean. There's two oceans given here. The bhava sagar and prema patha. Two oceans in one line. Prema patha, ocean of love. Bhava sagar, an ocean of, and an ocean, a sea of how will you translate that? Of light, bhasvara and bhava. This bhava is almost impossible to translate, because if you look in the dictionary under bhava, you'll get a whole page of meanings, because it has so many associations. It means, on the one hand, a mood. It means an attitude. It means a spirit, especially a spiritual attitude. It means spiritual intoxication. It means inebriation. It means going into a deep spiritual mood is having a bhava. It means intense and deep love for God, even. But it can also mean, what's your attitude? What's your bhava? What's your bhava? My bhava is like this. And we try to cultivate in spiritual life a particular attitude towards the divine, a particular bhava. So he's a shining sea of so many bhavas, different kinds of bhavas, all flowing towards the divine. And an ocean of love. Bhaktarjana jugala charana dharana bhavapad. If the devotees gain your feet, that becomes a raft across the ocean of this world. This is poetic language. It's repeating that we know, the scriptures of India, so many times this imagery comes of the divine, the divine God as a raft across the ocean of the world. That the ocean of the ocean, the world is like an ocean in which we can drown. We get a hold of a raft. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say it's the divine incarnations who are the raft. An ordinary illumined soul who realizes God, becomes enlightened, is like a log. And so a few birds can perch on it. But if a person tries to grab hold of it, it'll sink. But a raft built of many logs can carry hundreds of people across, thousands of people across. Of course, in the case of divine incarnations, millions of people across. Bhavapad. Jrimbita Yuga Ishwara Jagadishwara Yoga Sahaya. You are the... we discussed this yesterday. Swami Vivekananda really looked on Sri Ramakrishna as ushering in a new era in this world of harmony, of peace. One of his fundamental messages was of the harmony of religions, that the religions, and he had so many wonderful parables about that. We should know these parables. They're wonderful for discussing with other people the deep thoughts about religion. One of the wonderful ones, which is an Indian story. It's not Sri Ramakrishna's story. It's found all over in India, but he reminds us of it and has repopularized it. The story of the blind man and the elephant. And for the sake of those of us here who don't know it, let me briefly tell it. It's a wonderful story. There were some blind men in the village, and they'd always heard about an elephant, but they'd never seen one. Of course, they don't have eyes to see. But then there was a wedding procession was arranged in the village, and so an elephant was brought. And so they heard about this. They said, let's go see the elephant. Now, of course, blind people, how do they see? Well, with their hands, by touching it. So they all went to the elephant, and they all touched the elephant and learned as much as they could about the elephant by touching it, and felt great satisfaction that they had finally experienced the elephant firsthand. And afterwards they were discussing amongst themselves, and they said, oh, whoever knew that an elephant is like a big serpent. And another man said, what? What do you mean a serpent? I touched the elephant. I saw the elephant. The elephant is like a big pillar. And the third one said, what? You're both mad. I touched the elephant. The elephant is like a big fan. Who would have thought that? And so gradually they fell into a big argument. It's like a pillar, no, it's like a wall, it's like a broom, it's like a serpent. And of course, someone who had eyes came along and heard this big argument and said, hey, settle down, guys, settle down, settle down, settle down. You're all right. You're all correct. but you didn't touch the whole elephant. You only touched a part of it. The one you who thought he was like a serpent, you only touched the trunk. You who thought the elephant was like a pillar, he's certainly like a pillar if you touch his leg. And the one who thought he was like a fan, you touched the ear. But you didn't see the whole elephant. So like that, it's a wonderful parable, because all of them had experienced the elephant and touched it. So likewise, the different teachers of religion, they have experienced God directly, and they have experienced God in a certain way. They have experienced the divine as Jesus, perhaps, or as Allah, or as Krishna, or as Durga, or as Tao, the Tao, whatever they have experienced, and they say it's like this, and they're right. And yet they disagree with each other, because they can all be right. They can still be different and all correct, because they haven't seen the whole thing. They haven't experienced. How can one experience the infinite with this finite mind? So it's a wonderful. So like this, ushering in, Sri Ramakrishna came to usher in, and in his own life, we know he practiced different spiritual practices of the different traditions, and he had the experience. He practiced the disciplines of Islam and experienced God as Allah. He also had a mystical experience of Jesus and became convinced that Jesus was an incarnate. It was a manifestation of God, a world teacher. So he is ushering in this new age. So that's why Swami Vivekananda calls him the Yoga Ishvara, the God for this age. Jagat Ishvara, the Ishvara, the Lord for this time, here and now. The new dispensation, as it were, the teacher for this age. Not that the previous teachers are wrong, not that you can't follow the previous teachers, but now we have another teacher whose teachings are specifically relevant for this age, when we have so much of interreligious squabble and also so much of doubt in the truth of the divine. Yoga Sahaya, who helps us in yoga. Nirodhana Samahitamana, Nirakhi Tava Kripaya. Your mind is completely, well, this line also bears two interpretations. Nirodhana means that state of mind which is completely still. On the one hand, we can say that yes, Sri Ramakrishna's mind was always in samadhi, in union with God. And the second part of the line means we see you by your grace. By your grace, we get your vision. But it may also be he is Yoga Sahaya, he helps us in yoga, and it may be that Swami Vivekananda here is expressing a personal something, that by your grace, you helper of yoga, you have stilled my mind. My mind, the mind has become completely still and absorbed in, because that is when we see the divine. When the mind has become still, the mind which, the waves of which obscure our vision of the divine. When that mind becomes completely stilled and absorbed, by your grace, we see you. So it bears two interpretations. Bhanjana dukha ganjana karuna karma kathor. Three ideas expressed here. You destroy that mass of sorrow. You are compassion solidified. You are, as it were, just a mass of compassion, and yet you worked so hard for this world. Karma. How hard you worked to help us. Sri Ramakrishna, what struck me most about Sri Ramakrishna when I first learned about, was studying him and his life, is that he's always in joy. And not only that, but those who come and sit with him, they also get joy. And we were just talking, why do so many of you come here? You come here to get a taste of that joy. That spiritual life is a life of joy. And it was an infectious joy in Sri Ramakrishna's case. He would sing a hymn expressing some beautiful thoughts of God, and everyone would feel an uplift, an inexpressible ecstasy. sometimes it would be as if they were drunk. The joy was so great that it was almost unbearable. So he's destroyer of this mass of misery, which we find when we are attached, when we get too much attached to this world, it brings us only misery. So, Pranarpana, Jagatatarana, Grindana Kaliyor. You have made an offering, a sacrifice of your whole life to bring us across this world and cut the bonds of the Kali Yuga, of this age, the bonds of this age, which are especially this materialism and doubt. It's poetic, it's a poetic expression of deep devotion, expressing these ideas. Who is the divine teacher? Who is the divine master? Does these things. Vanchana kama kanchana atinindita indriyarag. One of the specialties of Sri Ramakrishna was his renunciation. It was phenomenal. We know how, Holy Mother once said that people talk about this, and we also talk about the principal message of Sri Ramakrishna was harmony of religions. But Mother says, I never felt that was his primary message. He didn't set out to preach that. The primary feature of his life was his intense renunciation, actually, dhyaga. His giving up of all things, depending solely on the divine. So much was his renunciation that, Swami Vivekananda tested him because he doubted he said he couldn't touch money. It would pain him. He hid a coin under his mattress. When Sri Ramakrishna sat down on the mattress, he jumped up as if stung by an insect. And some people thought maybe there's an insect in the bed. And Swami Vivekananda, then he confessed, no, I hid a coin in the bed. Sri Ramakrishna was happy. He said, yes, test your teacher before accepting him. Test him. He wasn't angry at all. But see, this was his Kama Kanchana. And of course his teachings, the two main, and in this age we see it so clearly, the two main obstacles in spiritual life and the two main attractions which are presented before us as the goals of life are fulfilling lust and fulfilling greed. That's what's presented before us in the greater society. Lust and greed, Kama Kanchana, lust and gold. These are the two big desires which plague us and and everywhere, especially if we watch television, we see that most of it's all about that, about those two things. So those are the two that especially he had mastery over those impulses to acquire money and impulse for physical enjoyment, especially sex. Tyagishwara, Lord of the renouncers, O Supreme Person, He Naravara, Dehapada Anurag, grant us love for you. That's the line. Sri Ramakrishna said, I'm a king of the devotees and I'm also king of the sannyasins, king of the monks. He told Ladu Maharaj, Swami Adbhutananda, not only I am king of the devotees, I am also king of the sannyasins. So he had that. He was a monk himself, though he was married, and he didn't wear the dress of a monk. He didn't wear these ochre robes, but he had undergone the formal rituals of becoming a monk. Nirbhaya gata samshaya dridha nishchaya manasavan. Your mind is full of strength, no fear at all doubts vanished, absolutely firm. Nishkarana bhakata sharana. Without any cause, you are the causeless refuge. Without any cause, you provide in yourself a refuge. Without question, thou shelterest us, as Prabhupada translates it. Nishkarana, without any cause, you are the refuge of the devotees. Tyaji jati kulaman. And this can be seen as applied in two ways. Otherwise, one is because he's the Yagishwara, he's the king of the monks. So those who have cast aside the caste, and family, and pride. But it also describes him. He was completely free of this idea of caste. As we know, he cleaned the latrine of the sweeper with his own hair to eliminate any pride at all. He was completely free of pride, of either of family or of caste or of any of learning or anything like that. And we're moving a little fast to at least sort of touch on every line once. Because immediately after this, it's 7 o'clock. Maybe we can have a quick bathroom break because I'll need one. And then some of you may also need one. We'll sing this song. So after having studied it, we'll sing this song, and it'll be beautiful. It's as part of our evening prayer, and it's sung so well here. I was really touched to hear last night the evening prayer. It's sung so wonderfully. The 8th verse, Sampada Tava Shri Pada Bhavagosh Pada Vari Jathai, or depending on if you pronounce it more like Sanskrit or Bengali. See the poetry. Sampada Tava Shri Pada Bhavagosh Pada Pada. Sampada is wealth, our treasure. Our treasure is what? Tava Shri Pada, your blessed feet. In Indian tradition, the feet have an interesting relationship with feet. On the one hand, our own feet are something to be kind of discounted and something a little bit nasty because they're always on the floor and they're dirty. And if we touch someone with our feet, we feel bad. We don't point our feet towards the altar, those kind of things. And yet, the feet of our elders, the feet of the respected persons, we worship those feet. We touch those feet. Or when we think of God, we feel like Ramakrishna, we lay flowers at his feet. We don't put them on his head. We lay the flowers at his feet at our humble worship, and we take refuge at his lotus feet. We say lotus feet. So our treasure is your blessed feet, which, this is beautiful, turn this ocean of the world. It makes it as if it's just a little puddle that fills the hoof print in the clay. You know, the cows, they leave footprints in the clay, and then they fill with water in the rain, and that's a measure of water. It's called the goshpada. The water that will fill a hoof print in the clay, that's the actual measure of water. And the whole ocean of this world, but if we have the treasure of your feet, this world's ocean becomes just like a puddle. A beautiful language, isn't it? Premarpana, you are an offering of love. We have talked a lot about that. Samadarshana, same-sighted. Your love is same-sighted. You look on all with an equal eye. The saint and the sinner, the man and the woman, the old person, the young person, that same-sightedness, because you see the divine in all. And we also aspire for that. We also aspire for the Samadarshana, in which we see the divine in all. Jaga Jana Dukha Jai. The misery of all the people of this world is alleviated with your coming. It's a grand idea, no? We see so much suffering still in this world. It hasn't come yet. But it's the idea that he has come not just, he was born in Bengal and he spoke the Bengali language only. He knew Sanskrit, he could understand Sanskrit, but he couldn't speak it. He knew a few English words, a handful of English words, which he would use sometimes to the amusement of the mostly very well-educated people who came to him in Calcutta. He had almost no education, but he would say, thank you. Thank you. And he would say, they have become diluted, was one of his words. Diluted. When people would start to absorb his ideas, he's become nicely diluted. He used the English word there. There are a few others. Englishman, I think, was one of them. Englishman means those who have modern ideas of the English, who were at that time the colonial power ruling over India. So that in that sense, he didn't come just for Bengalis. He didn't come just for India. Really, he came for the whole world. And remarkably, he had a vision, which he told his disciples about, the Holy Mother, that he had some vision of going to another place where he had many devotees who had white skin. So it's lucky that he told the Holy Mother that, because when we, with the lighter colored skin, go to India, the devotees accept us fully. Also, there's no, and we feel also fully part of the movement, and we feel fully accepted, because Sri Ramakrishna already foresaw that so many would come all over the world. And it's amazing, in California, we have a strong contingent of very sincere and deep devotees of Sri Ramakrishna from Iran. There's a lot of Persians living in Southern California. And we find a growing number of very sincere devotees from Persia, from Iran, who have been initiated and are regular members of the center. So it's quite remarkable.
Mother seems to have started in Maharaj, like Surabji Modi from Mumbai was a disciple. He had received, he was in the film industry and received initiation from her. So it seems like she had started the trend. So it has come full circle.
Yes. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So he was the first Persian disciple in the movement. All right. So we have 5 minutes. Let me say that these are the 8 verses which really contain the essence of it. And then the 9th verse says, Namo Namo Prabhu Vakyamanam Pita Manovachanaikadha. O our salutation, we bow down to you, we salute you, O Lord, you who are beyond speech and mind, and yet the soul support. The soul, as Prabhupada writes it, Thou art beyond mind and speech, yet without thee we think not nor speak. Because if it were not for the divine principle, where would it's that divine principle which animates our minds, animates our speech. That speech. The mind is insentient in Vedanta philosophy. The body is insentient. The mind is insentient. It's only consciousness, which is the divine, which lends itself to our minds and our speech, so that we're conscious and we speak. Jyoti Rajoti Ujala Hrini Kandara Tumitamo Bhanjanahar. You are the light of lights, shining in the cave of the heart, dispelling all the darkness there. It's a way to meditate on the divine teacher as the light of lights, revealing even, he's self-revealing. Light, if we don't need any light to reveal the sun to us. The sun, if we come into a dark room, we don't see anything, we need to turn on the light to see what's there. But we don't need to turn on the light to see the sun, it's self-revealed. But we do need one light to see the sun. We need the light of consciousness to see the sun. So that's why he is the light, even of light. It's the light of the lights, the consciousness, which is shining in the cavern of the heart. Vedide Langa Ranga Bhanga are the words indicating the rhythm of the song. Here he's saying now, Vedide Langa Ranga Bhanga Bhaja Yanga Sangha Vilanga. The devotees are singing your praise in this hymn with the sound of the drum. So actually he wrote the drum into the song. Mridanga, that's the Mridanga, which is actually the Pakawaj. Chanda Bhakata Vrindarati Tumar. The devotees are gathered singing this hymn of Arati, this hymn of praise to you. Arati Tumar, Hara Hara, which is the name of Shiva. Maybe this connects it with the first hymn that they were singing. They were singing especially a hymn to Shiva before this hymn was introduced. So maybe he brought especially the name of Shiva here to connect it with that previous hymn. Jaya Jaya, glory, glory. And Jaya has two senses of victory, of may you be ever victorious all over, and glory, glory to you. Jaya Jaya Arati Tomar, your Arati, Hara Hara Arati Tomar, Shiva Shiva Arati Tomar. Then the first verse is repeated. So this is Kanana Bhava Bandhana.
Maharaj.
And we actually completed the study of it, sort of.
Yeah.
Not never you can complete it, but we went through every line.
Maharaj, the only part that I did not hear you, and you don't have to do it, is Chiraunmada Prema Pathar. Bhaswara Bhavasagar. You said there are two oceans. The first one is of course Bhava.
Chira Unmada, ever intoxicated, you can say. He was mad with love, no?
Yeah.
There was this song that he used to sing, that composed by Trailokanath Sanyal, the Brahman. Oh mother, make me mad with thy love.
Yeah.
Let me be mad with love for you. That's all we need. If we can taste that love.
Thank you.
So then, of course, after this hymn, is sung Om Hrim Ritam, which we won't go into now because we don't have time. But each line has this, each verse ends with this line. Therefore, thou art my only refuge.
The song, the English version is on page 12 and the word translation is on page 14.
Therefore, thou art my only refuge, O friend of the devotee. Maybe after the prayer, I can say a few words because there's a few nice things to say about this hymn, including the hidden mantra. Do you know about the hidden mantra?
Oh, not Om Shri, the first line.
Yes, you know it. That's the hidden mantra.
The first characters.
So let's take, can we make the arati just a little bit late because I think we need to stretch our legs. Some of us may need a little break. And we'll come back in 10 minutes and we'll have the evening prayer. And in the meantime, the chair can be moved and all those things. We'll get ready.
So Hari will have no break. That's okay.
And if you have an extra set of kanjani, I would like to play the kanjani for the kandana. Okay.